Best Funeral Ever is the most disrespectful TV show I've ever seen. Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Best Funeral Ever is a reality TV show that aired on TLC for 2 series in 2013 and 2014. The show is set in a funeral parlour in Texas that puts on extravagant themed funerals. Each episode focuses on 2 funerals. The one I'm watching today has a horror theme and a game show theme. The show kicks off with a cold open focused on the horror funeral.
When I was a kid, if there was a zombie movie out, she'd always take me. That's why we decided the best way to honor her was with a zombie funeral.
Thank God it wasn't adult movies that she liked. But what was it about horror films that she loved?
She liked the horror of it.
Very insightful. Daniel says his grandma loved to watch him dance, so he's choreographed a routine for the funeral. I'll have to change the music for copyright, but the song they use is Yeah by Usher. That's such a random choice. Surely Thriller would be more appropriate.
Let the celebration begin!
That's the scariest priest since Velocipaster. So that was the cold open to the show. That's all we see of the horror funeral. The rest of the episode is about the game show one. The show proper starts with a family coming to Golden Gate Funeral Home to discuss their plans for the funeral. At least I'd call it a funeral. They refer to it as a homegoing service, which I think is really patronising. The funeral is for a man named Alfred, though they all call him Tip.
If you call him Alfred, people that really know him, they won't know who you're talking about. You know, it's gotta be Tip.
Annoyingly, they never explain why he's called that. I'm really curious. In the UK, the word tip means a rubbish dump, so it's not the best nickname. The lady at the funeral home tries to gather more information about Tip.
If he was here right now, what would you say to him?
I'd say, oh my God, stop the funeral, he's alive. That's not the answer they go for, though.
I just let him know that I love him.
This is supposed to be an emotional moment, but after the craziness of the intro, it just doesn't resonate. The conversation then moves to the theme of the funeral.
Love some game shows.
I don't want to be rude about the dead, but if the first thing people mention is that you loved game shows, you had a really boring life.
Loved game shows. When he got really sick and we used to go to the nursing home, he would always watch Wheel of Fortune and try to guess the puzzle.
That's because when you're ill, you're not able to do anything else. I feel like Tip didn't have any input at all. It's like Don't Tell the Bride, but it's Don't Tell the Body instead. The next scene is at what looks like an auction house, with people from the funeral home shouting out ideas. We're told it's 48 hours to the funeral. Planning a funeral normally takes weeks, so that's crazy. A few people come out with ideas, but the host puts them all down.
And have the one say, come on down.
Come on down and do what?
Eventually they come up with the idea of asking questions about Tip's life. As a prize, they plan to give away some of his belongings. The people in the room then pray, with the prayer incorporating different game show titles.
Father, we ask now that we know that the price is right.
One lady finds this hilarious.
Sometimes there might be a family feud, but in the end, even though...
I'm not religious, but this feels really inappropriate. I know American churches are a lot more expressive than British ones, especially black churches, but laughing during a prayer still feels wrong. After an ad break, the planning for the game show funeral is now well underway. They've come up with a title for the game show, Say What?
Telling me stuff I don't know, and I'd be like, say what? Say what?
They've also designed the game show set.
To go out in true game show fashion, we're gonna put Tip's casket on the wheel for the family to give it a big old spin.
All that sounds really dignified. They say it's a celebration of life rather than mourning the loss, but I'd be really upset to see a casket spinning round. And worst of all, the family aren't expecting it.
The family has no idea this is in the works. We believe they're gonna be blown away when they see what we have planned.
The team test out the spinning wheel, but the casket falls off, so they decide they need to weigh it down.
Who's the lightest one out here?
Well, you know, I'm willing to do anything for our families, but getting spun around in a casket?
I'm not sure why it had to be a person. Surely they've got something with weight he could use. Whatever the reason, they put Will in the casket, propping the lid open so he can breathe.
1, 2, 3.
While the guys work on the spinner, the girls visit Tip's niece to get prizes for the game show. First up is the watch that he wore every day. She sounds so suspicious when she's taking it.
We'll take good care of it.
It sounds so unconvincing. I think it's because it comes straight after the casket crash. The other prizes offered are a baseball hat and a ring.
His kids gave him that ring and he never took it off.
That sounds like a really sentimental item. Surely his kids would want it, rather than it being given out at the funeral. There's then another ad break. American TV is ridiculous. When we come back, it's the day of the funeral. The guy will be the presenter of the game show. He's still struggling to learn his lines. The boss's response to this is really weird to me.
The family is here to celebrate their loved one's life. There's no joke about that.
What does he think they're doing? Having a theme in general turns it into a joke. Being a game show is even more of a joke. And then putting it in a reality TV show turns it into a joke. They put the fun in funeral. The service is about to start, but they can't find the pastor, as in the vicar, not the food. Eventually, the pastor's wife phones and says that he's been taken to hospital.
His wife says he's gonna be okay, but I have to find a pastor in Texas on a Sunday.
The team frantically call around and they manage to find a replacement. The family begin to arrive for the funeral. Tip's niece seems to have unrealistic expectations.
I am expecting to see Uncle Tip come to life today.
Does she know it's a funeral? The replacement pastor arrives and they have to quickly explain the game show concept to him.
Okay.
So the name of the show is Say What?
Say what?
When you get ready to call the family members down, you're gonna say, step on down.
We see the pastor rehearsing his lines in the corridor as the coffin is wheeled in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the game show Say What? I'm your host, Jerome Foster.
The framing of this is ridiculous. It looks like a scene from The Office. Finally, we get to see the funeral itself.
Welcome to the family edition of the #1 game show on TV.
Everyone looks happy with the game show theme. I thought there'd be at least one person who felt it was inappropriate. Next up, the pastor comes out. Not like that, this is Texas. The pastor comes out and calls forward the casket.
Let's meet our guest of honor, Tip. Step on down.
The pastor calls forward 3 family members as contestants. As if it wasn't bad enough, the buzzers are on top of the casket, so they have to touch it to answer.
What was Tip's favorite game at family reunions? Dominoes.
Luckily, they gently push the button. I was expecting them to smack their hand out. Also, I have no idea what that game is. It sounded like Dumbos. Each of the contestants got 1 question right, so they each win one of the prizes. The pastor says that the ultimate winner is Tip, so he gets the grand prize. To decide his prize, they spin the casket. It's spinning a lot slower than it did in rehearsal, so it feels a little more respectful. The prize it lands on is salvation. Imagine if it landed on damnation instead. And that's the end of the episode. The horror funeral from the opening doesn't get mentioned again, which is really odd. The blurb for the episode was all about the horror funeral, so you'd think that that would be the main focus of the episode. So what do you think? Was it the best funeral ever? Personally, I'd say no. I feel like having a theme cheapens the whole thing. A funeral should be serious, and it should be sad. It's a way for people to let out their grief. It also feels really wrong to film a funeral, especially for a reality show. I do wonder what Tip would have thought of it. Surely game shows couldn't be that big a part of his life. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. If there's anything that you'd like me to make a video on, then let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.